This QDS video will show you how to modify data in the Warehouse Manager, including how to track changes in the data corrections log. Once you have collected your data and brought it into a local warehouse file, you'll sometimes need to make changes, maybe modify a response or delete an interview. You can do either of these in the Warehouse Manager, which will automatically keep track of all changes made in a data corrections log. The default security settings in the Design Studio, which are set under Options Interview Security, allow any users to make data changes within a Warehouse Manager file. However, if a modify password was defined in those security settings, you'll be prompted to supply it before making any data change. The data set we are working with does not require a modify password. There are two modes for working with data. One just to view data, where you cannot make changes, and the other where you can make modifications. If you would like to just view your collected data, you can go to View and then Details, or just double-click on one of your interviews. You'll note that the Interview Details window is actually marked Read Only. This is convenient when you'd like to look over your data but not worry about making unintentional changes. You can also go to the read-only view without needing a modify password if one was required in your Design Studio setup. You'll notice that the Interview tab gives you date and version information. If you go to the Variables tab, you'll see a listing of variable names, labels, and responses. If you double-click on a variable box will open, but you'll notice that all the boxes are grayed out and no data can be changed. You'll see the type of value, numeric code, display value, and the range. We'll go into these in more detail when we are modifying data, and you can just click OK to go back. As mentioned, the QDS Warehouse Manager automatically tracks all changes made in a data corrections log. There are several options regarding the log that can be updated. To view and change these options, you'll go to Tools and then the last option here, and that will open up the Options dialog box. In the middle, you'll see several items regarding the data corrections log. By default, the first three of these are checked. The first is username required. With this, you'll be asked for your name or initials when you go to modify or to delete or undelete an interview. These will provide the username for the data corrections log. The second one here is reason for change required for all data modifications. With this checked, you're always required to enter a reason, which again will be listed in the log. Likewise, the reason for a change required for all delete/undelete operations will also require that reason and be reflected in the log. These last two options are not checked by default. It's probably best to leave them this way. One allows discard of the data corrections log, and the last allows you to add corrections from incoming source files to the local warehouse. You might want to check that option if you anticipate changes made to source data files. However, it's generally best to make them all in one place in the local warehouse. For this example, we're going to keep the options at the default settings. To modify collected data, you'll go to Edit and then Details, or you can just select the Modify button from the toolbar. If we had required a modify password, you would be asked for it here. However, we are going to be still asked for the name or initials, as that is the default setting. And we'll go ahead and enter that. And then the Interviews Detail box will open to the Variables tab. In this mode, if you double click on a variable, we'll first go to one of the pick one items. And when we open that up, you'll notice now that some boxes do allow for entry. For this variable, because it's a pick one type, we see that the type of response is normal, and you'll see that the numeric code box is open and can be edited. The other possible types of values for this, such as special codes, skipped value, or no value for missing, they're also not grayed out, and so that could be changed as well. If we do change the selection to refused, you'll see that the numeric code changes to our Design Studio setting and that the display value is also changed. These boxes here are grayed out because the special codes must be changed in the type of value box. If you change it back to normal response, the codes will go back to what was originally entered. To change the normal response for a pick one, you can just go ahead and change the code in the box, and you'll see that display value update accordingly. And before exiting, you will need to enter a reason in the box, as that once again is the default setting. After you click OK, you can see that the value is updated here in the listing. Now, if you look at a numeric or rating type variable, we'll go to one of those, you'll see that the numeric code is listed in the box as a normal response, and the display value is simply that code. And we're going to go ahead and just cancel out and not make any changes. Now, if you look at the variable listing, you'll notice that the variables are listed in the order of the interview with just a few exceptions. For any variables that are composite variables and have subcomponents, this includes dates, check all that apply, ranking, time span, or time of day. They have all their main variables listed in order. However, all of their component variables are listed at the bottom after the last item. Here, the last item is the end time variable, which was a calculated variable, and then our component variables are all listed after that. For this survey here, it was date of birth components, our employment check all that apply components, and our ranking choice components. For these types of variables, it is important to remember that if you need to make a change, you do not modify the main variable, but instead modify one or more of the component variables listed here at the bottom. And then this in turn will update the main variable. So, if you do look at one of those main variables, you'll see that you cannot change the normal response. You could change it to a special code, but that's the only allowable type of change, and will cancel out. Also, if you go to a check each type response, you'll notice that the display value for these is a series of zeros and ones. The ones represent the checks. So for this item, 2 choices were selected. You'll see 2 ones there, and you'll see the numeric code is 2, representing 2 choices selected. We're going to go ahead and cancel out of that. If you take a look at our ranking type item, you'll see this is similar to the check each, except the display value is showing the ranking choices that were made, and you'll see a total of 3 items were ranked. That's why the numeric code is 3. And once again, we'll go back to our listing. So if we would like to make a change to our date of birth item, we will go down to the component we would like to modify. First, we'll click on the day component, which you'll notice that variable name is DOB with a D at the end of it for day. And we're going to go ahead and change the normal response to a different day. And then after that, we do need to enter a reason for change in the box. And we're also going to go ahead and make a change to the month and enter a reason. Now if we go back and look at the date of birth variable, you will see that the display and the value has been updated in the full composite variable. Next, if we wanted to make a change to our check each item, we could go down to the check each components. You'll see that B and C are already equal to 1. They were already selected. And if we say also wanted to change the selection so that the choice A was also selected, we'll go ahead and change that code for 1. And after we've entered our reason, we'll go ahead and click OK. You'll see that now that has been updated, and if we look at the employment variable, you'll see that now 3 items are indicated as having been checked with the numeric code of 3. You would follow the same types of steps to make a change for other component type variables. That's the final modification we'll make for this interview. Now, in the local warehouse listing, in the changed column, you can see the date that changes were made for the interview that we were just modifying. The last modification that we do want to make is going to be for the subject identifier. You'll notice that we have 2 duplicate interviews, and this is where the subject IDs are the same. The subject ID for this study here is a combination of subject and visit that was specified in the design studio. In this example, the duplicate entry was made by error, and we need to enter a different subject number for one of those. So we'll select the interview to be changed, and then once again click that modify button. Then we'll go to the subject identifier and open that up. And then in the numeric code box, we will enter our new code and our reason for change. And once we click OK, we will see that reflected in the box. And we'll click OK. Now in the warehouse, you do see that new ID number, and you'll notice that now these have a status of complete and not duplicate because they no longer are duplicate IDs. And once again, you'll see the change date in that column. The final change we'll make is to delete an interview. So go ahead and select the interview that you're interested in deleting, and then you can go to Edit, Delete, or you can also select the delete button. Once again, it will ask you for a reason, and after you enter that, you'll see that the status is changed to deleted. One note about deleted interviews: if you go to Tools, Options, this option in the top left corner is about removing deleted interviews when they exceed a certain percentage of the file. By default, this is set to 50% of the file size. If you wanted to, you could change this if you prefer, so that your deleted interviews will not show up. However, it's often useful to have them still in the file so that you can have them there for documentation. One final note regarding warehouse modifications: the one type of change you cannot make in the Warehouse Manager is to a numeric type automatic variable. If you need to make a change to one of those, you'll have to do that after you export your data in a different software program. To see all the data corrections that you've made in your warehouse, you can build a log. You can do that by going to Tools and then Data Corrections Log, and then Build Report. You'll see that there are a couple of other options here about entering a name or comments. The name will be the same one that we've already entered when we made our modification, so we don't need to do that again. And then you'll click Build Report. Your local warehouse data corrections log will open in your default word processor, and you'll see several columns. The first column on the left is date, where you will see the date and time changes were made. The next column is for the username, and the final for the activity or changes made. The most recent activity will be listed first. In this file, it is for the deleted interview, which indicates the subject ID and reason. You can also see the earlier modifications. These each list the modification, the question number, the variable name, and then the old and the new values and the reason that was listed for the change. The data corrections log is a good resource to have to keep track of all of the changes that are made in your local warehouse. That completes the review of data modifications in the Warehouse Manager. To learn more about QDS data management and working in the Warehouse Manager, see QDS Online Help and other Warehouse Manager videos.